There is a small borough in Pennsylvania, population under 6,000, where the crime rate is 173% higher than the nation average. Not in a rough neighborhood of Philadelphia, not in a suburb of Pittsburgh that people already know to avoid. A standalone small town in Allegheny County with a post office and a diner and a zip code where your odds of becoming a crime victim are worse than in most American cities 10 times its size. Pennsylvania is supposed to be the Keystone State. Liberty Bell. Amish country, college football, Ben Franklin, but the FBI data tells a different story about a different Pennsylvania. The one where post-industrial boroughs have been bleeding population and tax revenue for 50 years. The one where the opioid crisis hit small towns harder than the news cameras ever noticed. The one where entire zip codes have been quietly generating crime rates that belong at the top of every national list, but never make it there because they're not big enough to make the headline. And trust me, you are not ready for what's sitting at number 1. Let's break it down. Johnstown is a city in Cambria County in southwestern Pennsylvania, about 70 miles east of Pittsburgh. Most Americans who recognize the name know it from the Johnstown flood of 1889, one of the deadliest disasters in U.S. history, when a dam broke and sent a wall of water through the city, killing over 2,200 people. The flood made Johnstown famous. What happened to the city in the century and a half that followed is less widely known, but equally important. Johnstown was once a major center of steel production. Bethlehem Steel operated a massive plant there that employed tens of thousands of workers at its peak. When the American steel industry restructured in the late 20th century, Johnstown absorbed the impact with brutal directness. The plant closures drove an unemployment spike that became one of the most dramatic examples of post-industrial collapse in Pennsylvania. The population has declined from a peak of around 67,000 to approximately 20,000 today. FBI crime data from RoadSnack's 2025 analysis based on 2024 FBI reporting places Johnstown at the 16th most violent city in Pennsylvania, with residents facing a 1 in 170 chance of being attacked or killed in a given year. The burglary rate specifically ranks as the 3rd highest in Pennsylvania, a direct reflection of the concentrated poverty and vacant property that follows population collapse of this scale. Approximately 6.5 violent crimes and 32.8 property crimes per 1,000 residents are recorded annually. The Cambria City neighborhood, documented as the area with the highest crime concentration within Johnstown, reflects the pattern of a community that has been economically abandoned and has not found a replacement economic model in the decades since the steel industry left. Neighborhood watch programs have made some documented progress. A 16% reduction in home burglaries in participating areas has been reported. But the baseline from which that improvement measures is severe enough that Johnstown remains firmly on this list. Johnstown's flood was in 1889. The economic flood that followed it never fully receded. The next entry is a borough where both the data and the history are equally grim. Pottstown is a borough of around 22,000 people in Montgomery County, about 40 miles northwest of Philadelphia. Montgomery County is one of the wealthier counties in Pennsylvania, the mainline suburbs, the horse country around Malvern, the well-funded school districts that attract families from Philadelphia's more expensive neighborhoods. Pottstown is in Montgomery County and shares almost none of that wealth profile. It is one of the clearest examples in Pennsylvania of what researchers call concentrated poverty in a prosperous county, a community where the affluence of the surrounding region makes the local conditions more stark by contrast. FBI and Neighborhood Scout data place Pottstown among Pennsylvania's consistently most dangerous communities per capita. The crime rate runs significantly above both state and national averages. Approximately 22% of Pottstown residents live below the poverty line, according to documented analyses, well above Montgomery County's overall poverty rate. The median household income in Pottstown runs well below the county average. Property crime is the dominant category in the data, but violent crime is elevated above both state and national norms. Pottstown's economic history follows the familiar Pennsylvania post-industrial pattern. The borough was once a significant iron and steel manufacturing center. The Pottstown area was producing iron before the Revolution, and the industrial economy that followed sustained the community through much of the 20th century. That manufacturing base contracted significantly in the latter decades of the 20th century, and the population and tax base declined in parallel. The borough has worked to attract new investment, but but has faced the challenges common to post-industrial communities in transitioning to a different economic model. Pottstown is sometimes cited as an example of the inner ring suburb problem in American metro areas. A community that exists in the orbit of a wealthy metropolitan area processes some of its social service needs and shares none of its economic upside. The crime data reflects that structural position. Pottstown is surrounded by wealth it can't access. The next entry is in a similar position, adjacent to prosperity, living with its own distinct reality. Ambridge is a small borough of under 7,000 people in Beaver County, about 18 miles northwest of Pittsburgh on the Ohio River. The name is a contraction of American Bridge, a reference to the American Bridge Company, which built its major manufacturing facility there in the early 20th century and turned Ambridge into a significant steel and bridge fabricating community. The company built the Golden Gate Bridge, the George Washington Bridge, and countless other major infrastructure projects. Ambridge steel and iron workers contributed to the physical backbone of modern America. When American Bridge scaled back operations in the latter 20th century, Ambridge lost its economic anchor. The population has declined significantly from its industrial peak. Property Club's analysis of FBI crime data places the total crime rate in Ambridge at approximately 4,057 incidents per 100,000 people, making crime in the borough 73% higher than the US average. Residents face a 1 in 39 chance of becoming a victim of violent crime in a given year. Beaver County has faced the challenge of multiple post-industrial communities in close proximity, Ambridge, Aliquippa, and Midland among them, all simultaneously managing economic decline and elevated crime without the regional tax base to fund the coordinated intervention that the scale of the problem requires. The Ohio River communities of Beaver County represent some of the most severe post-industrial distress in western Pennsylvania outside of the immediate Pittsburgh suburbs. Ambridge does have genuine community assets. Its historic architecture from the early 20th century is intact in ways that more prosperous communities have demolished and replaced, and there are advocates working on preservation and economic development, but the crime data reflects the present reality of a community that has not yet found its post-industrial footing. Ambridge helped build America's bridges. It's been waiting for America to invest in it ever since. Moving north, the next entry is another Ohio River community with an equally difficult story. Aliquippa is a borough in Beaver County on the Ohio River, about 20 miles northwest of Pittsburgh. It was home to the Jones and Laughlin Steel Corporation's massive Aliquippa Works. At its peak, one of the largest steel mills in the world, stretching along the Ohio River for miles and employing over 10,000 workers. The community built around that mill was a genuine, functioning industrial city with department stores, theaters, schools, and the infrastructure of working-class prosperity. Then J&L, later LTV Steel, closed the plant in stages through the 1980s. The collapse of the Aliquippa steel industry is one of the most extensively documented cases of American deindustrialization. Sebastian Junger's early journalism, later collected in various forms, touched on communities like Aliquippa. The city's population declined from a peak of around 27,000 to under 9,000 today. That 67% population loss over roughly 6 decades is reflected in every metric that matters: property values, tax base, service funding, school quality, and crime rates. FBI-sourced crime data places Aliquippa's violent crime rate among the highest in Beaver County and significantly above both Pennsylvania's state and national averages. The concentrated poverty in the borough, where the median household income runs well below both county and state averages, creates the conditions that the crime statistics measure. Drug trafficking has been documented by Beaver County law enforcement as a persistent driver of violence in Aliquippa. Aliquippa has produced extraordinary people despite its conditions. National Football League players from Aliquippa have become a documented phenomenon, with the borough producing an improbable number of NFL players relative to its population. That cultural output is real and remarkable. It does not change the crime data, but it illustrates something important about the resilience and talent that communities under structural pressure can still produce. Aliquippa sends more players to the NFL than almost anywhere its size. It can't send them enough tax revs anyway to fix the problem. The next entry is closer to Philadelphia and equally struggling. Yeadon is a small borough of around 11 to 12,000 people in Delaware County, directly southwest of Philadelphia. So close that it is functionally part of the city's urban fabric, separated only by a borough boundary. Like many inner-ring Philadelphia suburbs, Yeadon has been shaped by the demographic and economic dynamics of Philadelphia's mid-20th century white flight and the concentrating of lower-income populations in the communities immediately surrounding the city. Property Club's analysis of FBI crime data places Yeadon's total crime rate at approximately 4,083 incidents per 100,000 people. Residents face a 1 in 25 chance of becoming a victim of any type of crime in a given year. Violent crime runs at a rate of 747 incidents per 100,000 people, and property crime at 3,136 per 100,000, both significantly above state and national averages. The median household income in Yeadon is approximately $48,000, well below both the Delaware County and national medians. Yeadon's proximity to Philadelphia means it processes some of the urban crime dynamics of the larger city while having the police department and tax base of a 12,000-person borough. Drug-related activity that moves through the Philadelphia metropolitan area does not respect borough boundaries, and Yeadon's law enforcement resources are significantly smaller than the challenge it faces relative to its location. Delaware County has been working on regional approaches to public safety that recognize the interconnected nature of crime across small boroughs in the Philadelphia suburban ring. But the resource disparity between communities like Yeadon and more affluent Delaware County suburbs remains a structural challenge that local policing cannot fully address. Yeadon is Philadelphia's shadow, carrying city-level problems with borough-level resources. The next entry in this region tells a similar but even more extreme story. Folcroft is a small borough of around 6,700 people in Delaware County, a few miles south of Philadelphia. It is one of the smallest communities on this list and one that rarely appears in discussions of Pennsylvania crime at the state or national level, which is precisely why it belongs here. RoadSnack's analysis of 2024 FBI data places Folcroft at a violent crime rate of 535 per 100,000 residents, with 2 murders recorded in the reporting year, a per capita homicide rate that is extraordinary for a community this size. The property crime rate runs at approximately 2,062 per 100,000. Folcroft occupies a specific position in Delaware County's socioeconomic geography. The borough has a history of racial tension. It was the site of significant civil rights confrontations in 1963, when a black family, the Myers family, attempted to purchase a home there and faced violent mob resistance. The legacy of that history and of the demographic and economic changes that followed across the Delaware County inner ring has shaped the community in ways that are visible in current social and economic data. The poverty rate in Folcroft and the median household income run below county and state averages, reflecting the income stratification of Delaware County's small borough communities. Law enforcement in Folcroft operates with the resource constraints of a 6,000-person municipality facing crime patterns that are driven partly by the borough's position in the broader Philadelphia metropolitan crime geography. Folcroft's history is complicated, and its present is reflected in the data. The next entry is a borough, where the data has been bad for longer than most people have been paying attention. Monessen is a small city of around 6,600 people in Washington County, in the Monongahela Valley, south of Pittsburgh. It sits in the same geographic corridor as McKeesport and Duquesne, communities built on steel and coke production that experienced dramatic post-industrial collapse in the latter decades of the 20th century. Monessen's population peaked at over 18,000 and has declined to under 7,000 today, a loss of more than 60%. RoadSnack's 2025 analysis of 2024 FBI data places Monessen's violent crime rate at 1,063 per 100,000 residents, the third highest violent crime rate of any community in Pennsylvania. That number for a city of 6,600 people is genuinely alarming. It places Monessen among the most dangerous small communities, not just in Pennsylvania, but in the broader national ranking of per capita violent crime. The violent crime rate in Monessen is nearly 3 times the national average and more than 4 times the Pennsylvania state average. The Mon Valley, as the Monongahela Valley corridor is known, has been the subject of extensive documentation of post-industrial decline. online. Jonathan Ryder's research, various journalistic accounts, and policy papers have all examined what happened when the steel and coke industries that built these communities withdrew. Monessen is the Mon Valley's most acute crime case study, small enough that each violent incident moves the per capita rate significantly, and economically distressed enough that the underlying conditions have been resistant to reversal. Access to regional economic activity in the Pittsburgh metropolitan area from Monessen requires transportation that many residents in the most economically distressed communities do not reliably have. The geography of the Mon Valley, narrow river corridor, limited road infrastructure, creates a specific kind of isolation that compounds economic disadvantage. People who could be participating in Pittsburgh's post-industrial recovery economy are, in Monessen's case, not always able to reach it. Monessen's violent crime rate is third in all of Pennsylvania. The next entry trades the Monongahela Valley for the Delaware Valley, and the numbers tell a similar story. Darby is a borough in Delaware County, directly adjacent to Philadelphia, with a population of around 10,700 people. Neighborhood Scout places Darby's total crime rate at 54 per 1,000 residents, meaning more than 98% of Pennsylvania communities have a lower crime rate. Property Club's FBI-sourced analysis documents 152 violent crimes in a recent reporting year among Darby's population, a per capita violent crime rate that makes Darby one of the most dangerous small communities in Pennsylvania by that metric. The poverty rate in Darby runs at approximately 28.2%, with residents averaging less than $35,000 per year in household income, among the lowest figures in Delaware County, which is itself a county with significant wealth stratification. Property crime runs at approximately 4,625 incidents per 100,000 people. Residents face roughly a 1 in 22 chance of becoming victims of any type of crime in a given year. Darby's position in the Philadelphia suburban ring gives it the same structural dynamic described for Yeadon and Folcroft, a small municipality processing urban crime dynamics with borough resources. The Delaware County inner ring communities collectively represent a public safety challenge that exceeds the capacity of individual small boroughs to address unilaterally. Regional coordination on policing, social services, and economic development has been a topic of ongoing discussion in Delaware County, but the resource allocation questions are difficult. The median home price in Darby has been documented at approximately $66,000 in recent data, a figure that reflects both the affordability of the community for low-income buyers and the structural challenges that depress property values when crime and poverty are persistent features of the local environment. Darby is one of the most dangerous boroughs in Delaware County and barely makes state-level conversations. The next entry is a city that does make state-level conversation for all the wrong reasons. Allentown is Pennsylvania's third largest city, with a population of around 121,000 people in Lehigh County. It is the largest city in the Lehigh Valley and a significant regional economic center. It is also a city that has been on national dangerous city lists consistently, with a crime profile that positions it well above both Pennsylvania state and national averages on violent crime metrics. FBI uniform crime reporting data places Allentown's violent crime rate at approximately 386 incidents per 100,000 residents in recent reporting, slightly above the national average, but notably above Pennsylvania's state average. The homicide rate has been documented at approximately 8.2 per 100,000, which is above both state and national norms. The total crime rate runs approximately 41% above the U.S. average, and the Allentown Police Department's Gang Task Force has documented significant gang-related violent crime activity, making 62 arrests in a recent period specifically targeting violent offenders. Allentown experienced a significant demographic transformation from the 1980s onward as Puerto Rican and Latino communities grew substantially in the city, attracted by manufacturing jobs that were themselves declining. The city now has a majority Hispanic population and among the highest poverty rates of any major Pennsylvania city. The poverty rate runs significantly above national averages, and the concentration of low-income residents without adequate employment opportunities creates the conditions the crime data reflects. Billy Joel's 1982 song Allentown captured the mood of a city whose manufacturing economy was shutting down plant by plant. 40 years later, Allentown has diversified economically. Healthcare, distribution, and some manufacturing remain significant, But the crime data has not returned to the levels that would be expected of a city with a functioning economic base. The gang task force arrests and the drug-related violence documented by local law enforcement reflect the persistence of conditions that economic diversification alone has not resolved. Allentown's industrial closures became a Billy Joel song. The crime data became a different kind of record. The next entry is in a city that's been managing its numbers for even longer. York is a city of around 44,800 people in south-central Pennsylvania, about 100 miles west of Philadelphia. It is the county seat of York County and has genuine historical significance. York served as the temporary capital of the Continental Congress, and the Articles of Confederation were drafted and adopted there in 1777. That history is real and worth knowing. The crime data is also real and worth knowing. Property Club's analysis of FBI crime data places York's crime rate at 41% higher than the US average and 59% higher than the Pennsylvania state average. The violent crime rate is 92% higher than the national average. Residents face a 1 in 31 chance of becoming a victim of any type of crime in a given year, a figure that places York among the most consistently documented dangerous mid-sized cities in the state. York County as a whole is relatively prosperous. Manufacturing, healthcare, and distribution provide significant employment in the county, but York City, as distinct from the surrounding county, has a concentrated poverty profile that diverges sharply from the county average. The city's poverty rate runs well above both county and national averages, and the household income distribution reflects the bifurcation between the city and its surrounding suburban and rural communities that characterizes many Pennsylvania county seats. York has a documented history of racial tension. The city was the site of civil unrest in 1969 that resulted in deaths, and the legacy of that period has had long-term effects on community relations and institutional trust. Former Mayor Charles Robertson was indicted years later in connection with the 1969 events, in a prosecution that drew national attention to York's unresolved history. The current crime data exists in a community still processing that history at an institutional level. York's historical significance is real. Its crime data is equally real and equally documented. The next entry is a city that's been on Pennsylvania's most dangerous list longer than most. Scranton is a city of around 76,000 people in Lackawanna County in northeastern Pennsylvania. The Lackawanna Valley, once home to one of the most significant anthracite coal and railroad industries in the country. Scranton was known as the Electric City because it operated one of the first electric streetcar systems in the United States. At its industrial peak, the population exceeded 140,000. Today, it is closer to 76,000, and the FBI data places it consistently among Pennsylvania's more dangerous mid-sized cities. Crime analysis platforms based on FBI data report that Scranton records approximately 7.0 violent crimes and 34.2 property crimes per 1,000 residents annually. The downtown entertainment district and areas near the Susquehanna River watershed have been identified by local law enforcement as areas of concentrated crime activity. Drug-related offenses have been documented as a significant driver, consistent with the opioid crisis that hit northeastern Pennsylvania, with specific severity given the region's demographics and economic profile. Lackawanna County has one of the older median age populations in Pennsylvania, reflecting both the post-industrial decline and the departure of younger people seeking employment elsewhere. The county's workforce has not fully transitioned from its industrial heritage, and the economic diversification that brought some growth to other Pennsylvania regions has been slower to materialize in Scranton's specific geography. Healthcare, including Geisinger and regional hospital systems, has become one of the larger employers, but that sector alone cannot replace the breadth of the industrial employment base that preceded it. Scranton is probably best known nationally as the fictional setting of The Office. The people who actually live there navigate a city with genuine economic challenges and crime statistics that the television show did not explore. The NBC version of Scranton was a cheerful, mid-sized American city. The FBI version is more complicated. Scranton's TV version is funnier than its FBI version. The next entry is further south, in a city where the data has been severe for much longer than anyone should be comfortable with. Wilkes-Barre is a city of around 44,000 people in Luzerne County in the Wyoming Valley of northeastern Pennsylvania. It sits on the Susquehanna, a river about 20 miles south of Scranton, and was part of the same anthracite coal economy that built northeastern Pennsylvania's industrial prosperity and then declined through the latter 20th century. The city was devastated by Hurricane Agnes flooding in 1972, which destroyed enormous amounts of housing and infrastructure, and has been managing recovery and reinvestment dynamics ever since. FBI and crime analysis data place Wilkes-Barre's violent crime rate at approximately 7.0 per 1,000 residents, with property crime at 34.2 per 1,000, both significantly above Pennsylvania state averages. The downtown entertainment district has been identified by local law enforcement as a concentration area for certain crime categories. The city's license plate reader program, implemented in recent years, recovered 45 stolen vehicles in a 3-month period, a statistic that indicates the scale of vehicle theft relative to the city's size. Luzerne County has had its own governance challenges, a corruption scandal known as the Kids for Cash case, in which 2 judges were convicted of accepting payments from a juvenile detention facility operator in exchange for sending juvenile offenders there, drew national attention to institutional failures in the county. The case resulted in federal prosecution, convictions, and a re-examination of thousands of juvenile sentences. While that specific scandal is a distinct issue from street crime, it reflects the institutional environment within which Wilkes-Barre's residents have navigated daily life. The Wyoming Valley communities, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Hazleton, are in many ways a single regional unit with shared economic history and shared challenges. Hazleton, about 30 miles south, has its own significant crime profile driven partly by population growth that outpaced infrastructure investment. The broader northeastern Pennsylvania region is managing a post-industrial transition that is still, decades after the industrial decline, incomplete. Wilkes-Barre's Kids for Cash scandal made national news. Its crime statistics have been making local news for years. Moving south now for an entry that combines all of this region's patterns. Reading is a city of around 95,000 people in Berks County in southeastern Pennsylvania. It was once a significant manufacturing center, textiles, iron, automotive parts, and a major railroad hub that connected Philadelphia to the Pennsylvania interior. The Reading Railroad, which gave its name to one of the Monopoly Board's iconic properties, was headquartered here. Today, Reading is a city that has been cited in national poverty research as one of the most economically challenged mid-sized cities in the United States, with a poverty rate that has at points exceeded 40%, among the highest of any American city its size. Property Club's analysis of FBI crime data places the total crime rate in Reading at 81% higher than the Pennsylvania state average. Residents face a 1 in 28 chance of becoming a victim of any type of crime in a given year. The violent crime rate runs significantly above national averages. Reading's poverty rate and crime rate move in parallel, as they do across every community on this list. The concentration of poverty creates the conditions for elevated crime, and the elevated crime suppresses the property values and investment that might create economic alternatives. Reading's demographic transformation has been significant. The city is now approximately 60% Hispanic, primarily Puerto Rican and Dominican communities that came to Reading for manufacturing jobs that were themselves in decline. These communities arrived in a city that was already economically distressed and did not receive the infrastructure investment that would have made their integration into a functioning local economy viable. The result is a concentrated poverty profile that national researchers have studied extensively. CNN Money named Reading the poorest city in America in 2011. Based on census data, the designation drew significant national attention but did not produce the sustained investment that would have changed the underlying conditions. Reading has community organizations, active local government, and residents who are fighting for the city's future. The crime and poverty data are the measure of how much distance there is still to close. Reading was named America's poorest city over a decade ago. The investment that designation was supposed to trigger never fully arrived. The next entry is in a city where the numbers are even harder to look at. Harrisburg is the state capital of Pennsylvania, a city of approximately 51,000 people on the Susquehanna River in Dauphin County. This is the city where Pennsylvania's laws are made, where the governor's mansion sits, where the state legislature meets. It is also a city with a violent crime rate that places it among the most dangerous municipalities in Pennsylvania, with FBI data recording approximately 31.2 violent crimes per 1,000 residents, a rate that is multiple times both the Pennsylvania state average and the national average. The combination of being a state capital and having severe crime metrics produces a specific political awkwardness that Harrisburg's residents live with daily. The people who write Pennsylvania's laws about crime and public safety work in a city where those laws have not produced the outcomes that residents need. The city's poverty rate runs significantly above state and national averages. Municipal finances have been chronically strained. Harrisburg faced a serious fiscal crisis in the early 2010s, related to an incinerator project that went dramatically over budget, and the recovery from that financial distress has shaped the city's capacity to invest in services ever since. Harrisburg's crime concentration is geographic. Specific neighborhoods, documented by local law enforcement, carry disproportionate shares of the city's violent crime load. The downtown and Capitol complex areas where state workers and government activity concentrate are not the areas generating the violent crime statistics. The residents of those other neighborhoods, predominantly lower income, predominantly minority, are the ones living with the daily reality of a capital city's crime data. The political awkwardness of a state capital with severe crime metrics has occasionally produced policy attention. Governors and legislators who work in Harrisburg have at times cited the city's conditions as motivations for state-level initiatives on poverty and public safety. Whether that proximity to power translates into adequate investment in the city's actual challenges is a question that Harrisburg's residents have been waiting for the answer to for decades. Harrisburg is where Pennsylvania makes its laws, and one of the places where those laws haven't been enough. The next entry is a borough where the situation is arguably worse. McKeesport is a city of around 17,700 people at the confluence of the Monongahela and Youghiogheny rivers in Allegheny County, about 10 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. It was home to the National Tube Company, a subsidiary of U.S. Steel, which operated one of the largest steel tube manufacturing complexes in the world. At its industrial peak, McKeesport had a population of over 55,000 people. It now has 17,000, and it has been on Pennsylvania's most dangerous city lists consistently for years. SafeHome.org's analysis of 2023 FBI data places McKeesport as having Pennsylvania's highest violent crime rate, with nearly 1,500 incidents per 100,000 residents. Property Club documents the total crime rate at approximately 4,091 incidents per 100,000 people, with 332 violent crimes and 542 property crimes recorded in a recent reporting year. Residents face a 1 in 24 chance of becoming a crime victim in a given year. The median household income in McKeesport has been documented at approximately $26,271, well below both Allegheny County and national medians. McKeesport's Monyo corridor geography creates specific isolation challenges. The rivers and the industrial topography of the Monongahela Valley create communities that are physically close to Pittsburgh, but practically isolated from its economic recovery. Pittsburgh has been widely cited as a model of post-industrial reinvention, universities, healthcare, technology, arts, but that reinvention has concentrated in specific parts of the metro. McKeesport has been waiting for its version for decades, and the crime and poverty data reflect the consequences of that wait. The physical landscape of McKeesport tells the story that the statistics summarize. Vacant lots where steel-era housing has been demolished. Commercial corridors designed for a city of 55,000 operating for 17. The Monongahela riverfront, which should be an economic asset, underdeveloped and underutilized. Communities do not collapse this visibly without generating crime data that matches what you can see from the street. McKeesport led Pennsylvania's violent crime rate in the most recent statewide data. Number 3 is even smaller and even more alarming per capita. Chester is a city of around 34,000 people in Delaware County, about 15 miles southwest of Philadelphia on the Delaware River. It is one of the oldest cities in Pennsylvania. William Penn landed near Chester in 1682, and it has one of the most severe crime profiles of any Pennsylvania city. Property Club's analysis places the crime rate in Chester at 116% higher than the Pennsylvania state average, with 4,289 total crimes per 100,000 people. Residents face a 1 in 22 chance of becoming a victim of any type of crime in a given year. Chester's homicide rate has been among the highest per capita in Pennsylvania for years. The city has had periods where its per capita murder rate ranked among the highest in the United States for communities its size. The violent crime rate runs multiple times the national average, and the property crime rate is similarly elevated. The median home price in Chester has been documented at approximately $66,800, among the lowest of any Pennsylvania city its size, reflecting both the affordability the conditions create and the investment the conditions suppress. Chester City School District has been under state receivership, the most extreme intervention available when a school district cannot function independently. The school district's challenges are inseparable from the community conditions: concentrated poverty, elevated crime, limited economic opportunity, and the family instability that those conditions produce. Children in Chester grow up in one of the most economically distressed and crime-affected communities in Pennsylvania, in a county that is otherwise among the wealthiest in the state. Delaware County's overall prosperity makes Chester's conditions more visible by contrast. The wealth concentrated in Radnor, Newtown Township, and the other affluent Delaware County communities exists in the same county as Chester's poverty and crime. That proximity has produced some county-level attention to Chester's challenges, but the gap between what Chester needs and what it has received remains wide by any objective measure. Chester is 15 minutes from Philadelphia and has been in crisis for decades with inadequate intervention. Number 2 is a borough even closer to Pittsburgh, with even more concentrated numbers. Wilkinsburg is a borough of around 13,600 people in Allegheny County, less than 10 miles east of Pittsburgh. It sits directly on the border with the city of Pittsburgh, separated only by a borough boundary from communities that are full participants in Pittsburgh's economic recovery. Wilkinsburg is not a full participant. Neighborhood Scout's analysis using 2024 FBI data places Wilkinsburg's combined crime rate at 30 per 1,000 residents, meaning more than 97% of Pennsylvania communities have a lower crime rate, and Wilkinsburg is among the top 100 most dangerous communities in the United States by this metric. RoadSnack's 2025 analysis of 2024 FBI data documents Wilkinsburg's violent crime rate at 586 per 100,000 residents, the second highest murder rate in Pennsylvania for the reporting year, with 2 murders among a population of 13,600. That per capita homicide rate is extraordinary. The property crime rate runs at 2,440 per 100,000, with Wilkinsburg averaging more than 1 property crime per day of the year. The burglary rate is documented as the second highest in Pennsylvania. On both violent and property crime metrics, Wilkinsburg is in the top 10 statewide. Wilkinsburg's position adjacent to Pittsburgh creates a specific painful dynamic. Pittsburgh's East End neighborhoods, Shadyside, Squirrel Hill, East Liberty, Bloomfield, have experienced significant investment and gentrification in recent decades. The border between those neighborhoods and Wilkinsburg is a real estate line, not a meaningful geographic barrier. Property values, school quality, and public safety diverge dramatically at that line. Wilkinsburg residents can see the investment happening a few blocks away and not reach it. The Wilkinsburg School District has faced significant challenges and has been the subject of discussions about consolidation with the Pittsburgh Public Schools, a measure of how severely the borough's tax base has constrained its ability to independently fund education at an adequate level. The Pittsburgh Public Schools merger discussions have been contentious, reflecting both the complexity of the policy question and the depth of the community's investment in its own institutions, despite the conditions those institutions operate under. Wilkinsburg is less than 10 miles from downtown Pittsburgh, and more than 97% of Pennsylvania communities are safer. Number 1 is smaller, less talked about, and the data is worse. McKees Rocks, population under 6,000, a borough in Allegheny County, about 5 miles northwest of downtown Pittsburgh on the Ohio River, also known as the Rocks. And this is the entry that earns the number 1 spot, not because any single metric definitively places McKees Rocks above every other community on this list in every category. The data is nuanced and the methodologies produce different rankings at different points in time. But because across multiple independent analytical frameworks over multiple reporting years, McKees Rocks consistently appears at or near the top of Pennsylvania's most dangerous communities, and its concentration of that danger in a population of under 6,000 people is what makes it the definitive number one. Property Club's analysis of FBI crime data places McKees Rocks' total crime rate at approximately 6,409 per 100,000 people, making the borough 173% more dangerous than the national average. In a single reporting year, 106 violent crimes and 262 property crimes were recorded among a population of under 6,000. Neighborhood Scout's 2024 FBI data analysis places the overall crime rate at 30 per 1,000 residents, with more than 97% of Pennsylvania communities having a lower rate. Best Places scores McKees Rocks' violent crime index at 71.8 against a US average of 22.7. More than 3 times the national norm. McKees Rocks has a history that mirrors the broader Western Pennsylvania post-industrial story, but in compressed, concentrated form. The borough developed as an industrial community in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, with rail yards, manufacturing facilities, and a working-class population that sustained it through the industrial era. The McKees Rocks strike of 1909 was one of the most significant labor actions of the early 20th century, a violent dispute between immigrant steelworkers and the pressed steel car company that drew national attention and helped shape American labor relations. That history is a measure of how much was once at stake in this small community. Today, McKees Rocks faces the challenges that follow industrial decline in a small borough with a limited tax base. The opioid crisis has been documented as a significant factor in the borough's public safety environment. Allegheny County as a whole recorded some of the highest opioid overdose death rates in the country during the crisis's peak years, and communities like McKees Rocks, with concentrated poverty and limited social services, were hit disproportionately hard. The borough's location on the Ohio River and near major interstate access points has made it a documented transit point for drug distribution in the Pittsburgh metropolitan area. What distinguishes McKees Rocks as the #1 entry on this list is not just the statistics. It is the combination of those statistics with the scale. Under 6,000 people, a crime rate 173% above national average, a violent crime index more than 3 times the US norm, in a borough that most people outside of Allegheny County have never heard of, processing a crime burden that would be alarming in a city 10 times its size, with the police department and tax base of a small municipality on the Ohio River. McKees Rocks earns the top spot on this list the way it earns everything, quietly, without a press office, and with data that speaks entirely for itself. If this video put a Pennsylvania community on your map that you hadn't thought about before, subscribe, drop your perspective in the comments. If you're from one of these communities and we got something wrong or missed something important, tell us. See you in the next one.